Disclaimer: this story explores mature emotional themes between adults. Viewer discretion is advised. I knew something was off when Daniel came home with that look in his eyes, the same one he had when he impulsively bought a motorcycle at 32 without ever having ridden one. The same one he had when he talked me into moving cross-country for the adventure. His ideas were always big, dramatic, and completely unfiltered. But this one was different. "I've been thinking," he said, grinning like he had just solved a world crisis. "What if we opened up the relationship?" I laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A full, genuine burst of disbelief. "You're kidding, right?" He wasn't. That's how it started. One sentence, casually dropped in the middle of dinner like it was nothing. Like he hadn't just cracked open a vault neither of us had the tools to close again. "My name is Claire. I'm 35, married to Daniel for 8 years. We met in college, survived our 20s together, built a life that, from the outside, probably looks pretty solid. We have no kids, but we've got a house with a mortgage, 2 rescue dogs, and shared Spotify playlists. We've had our ups and downs, some loud, some silent, but we always found our way back. Until now. See, I'm not against unconventional ideas. I'm a therapist, for God's sake. I've heard it all. But when the man you love, the one you thought you knew, comes to you with something that shakes the foundation of your relationship, it's not just a question. It's a gut punch." I said no. Clearly. Calmly. Repeatedly. I told him I wasn't interested in experimenting with our marriage. I told him I didn't want to redefine love. I told him I was happy with us, flawed, intimate, real. But Daniel heard something else. Maybe he heard fear. Maybe he heard control. Or maybe he just didn't care. Because a month later, he went ahead and did it anyway. He met someone. He didn't hide it, which somehow made it worse. He announced it like it was a promotion. "Her name is Lila. She's younger, free-spirited, open to possibilities," he said. He claimed it wasn't cheating, said it was consensual since he'd told me, even if I hadn't agreed. I felt like I was being gaslit in my own home. I was stunned, then numb, then angry. But mostly, I was heartbroken in a way I didn't know was possible after nearly a decade with someone. I had loved him through job losses, family drama, even a brief separation 2 years ago. But this? This wasn't a rough patch. This was betrayal wrapped in self-righteousness. So, what do you do when the person you built your life with decides to rewrite the rules without you? That's what this story is about. What happened after that choice, the choices I had to make, the truths I had to confront, and the moment I realized that love, no matter how deep, doesn't always come with loyalty. Because love isn't the only thing that holds a marriage together. And what Daniel did next, that's where things really got complicated. I wish I could say I packed a bag and left that night. That I walked out on principle, took the high road, or even caused a scene. But I didn't. I stayed. Not because I agreed, but because I didn't know how to leave. Not after 8 years of building a life with someone who, until recently, felt like home. Daniel wasn't always like this. When we met, he was the guy who remembered my coffee order, the one who made playlists for road trips and held my hand in crowded rooms. He was steady when I wasn't, loud when I needed laughter, and quiet when I cried. We used to talk about growing old together on some porch somewhere. We had dreams, small and ordinary ones. That's what made them beautiful. But over the last year, something shifted. It started slow, late nights at work, then nights out with friends, then him sleeping in the guest room more often, claiming my snoring had gotten worse. I chalked it up to stress, maybe a midlife crisis creeping in early. But I see now that he was already pulling away, writing a version of his future that didn't include me in the same way. I wasn't perfect either. I worked too much. I buried my feelings under calm professionalism, the therapist in me always trying to solve instead of feel. Maybe I missed the signs. Maybe I didn't want to see them. But the night he told me about Lila, I couldn't pretend anymore. He kept talking like I was supposed to understand, like I should be proud that he had been honest with me. He called it evolution, as if love was supposed to be constantly upgraded like a phone plan. He told me Lila was just a connection, nothing serious. He even had the nerve to say he hoped I'd meet someone too. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, the silence pressing into my chest like a weight. I kept thinking about all the little things: our wedding song, the joke we used to tell every anniversary, the way he looked at me the night we adopted our first dog. It was like someone had taken a red pen and scribbled over our whole story. But here's the thing. I didn't leave because part of me was still hoping he'd snap out of it, that he'd realize what he was doing and come back. I clung to that hope like a life raft. Meanwhile, I began quietly watching, listening, picking up on things he wasn't saying. The late-night texts. The way he always kept his phone face down. The receipts in his pockets that didn't match the stories. Something wasn't adding up. And just when I thought the worst was behind me, I found something I wasn't meant to find. The night I found the receipts, I told myself not to jump to conclusions. But I already knew this wasn't just some free-spirited connection. This was a full-blown secret life. There were 2 receipts in particular, one for a hotel on a Tuesday night he said he had a work dinner, and another for a necklace, something expensive, elegant, nothing like the simple things I wore. It wasn't for me. He hadn't bought me jewelry in years. Still, I didn't confront him right away. I needed to be sure. So I did something I never imagined myself doing. I started tracking patterns, logging his behavior, checking timestamps, listening more carefully. The worst part? I was good at it. Too good. Maybe it was the therapist in me, trained to notice inconsistencies, or maybe it was just survival instinct kicking in. Meanwhile, the emotional distance between us was turning into a canyon. We barely spoke outside of logistics, groceries, the dogs, what time the plumber was coming. He was always busy. I was always fine. But the silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was loaded. Then came the night I saw her. It was an accident. I was out with my friend Janelle, someone who knew just enough to worry, but not enough to judge. We were walking back from dinner when I spotted Daniel's car, parked in front of a trendy wine bar. And there he was, smiling, leaning close to a woman who looked like she walked off a Pinterest board. Lila. I knew it instantly. She was laughing. He was touching her arm. The way he used to touch mine when he thought no one was watching. I didn't confront them. I couldn't. I just stood there, hidden behind a tree like some cliché from a bad movie, frozen with rage and heartbreak. But the next morning, I did something else. I called Daniel's mother. It wasn't about revenge. I just needed someone who knew him before he became this version of himself. She listened, silent at first, then let out a sigh I'll never forget. Claire, she said quietly, he's been chasing escape his whole life. I always hoped you'd be the anchor. I'm so sorry. It hit me then. This wasn't just about infidelity or betrayal. This was about a man running from himself and dragging me down with him. But I still hadn't decided what I was going to do. Leave? Fight? Confront him and demand answers he might not even be capable of giving? All I knew was this. I couldn't keep pretending. And the next time I saw Daniel, I asked him one question that changed everything. I didn't sleep the night after I saw them together. I just sat in the living room, staring at the dark screen of the TV, heart pounding like something awful was about to happen. And in a way, it was. By morning, I'd made up my mind. No more silent treatments. No more pretending this was salvageable unless he made it clear, crystal clear, that he still wanted us. When Daniel walked in that afternoon, whistling like a man without a secret in the world, I felt a wave of nausea rise in my throat. I waited until he put down his keys. Then I said it calm, controlled, but loud enough to freeze the air between us. I saw you with her. His face dropped like I'd pulled the ground out from under him. For once, he didn't have a rehearsed excuse or smooth denial. Just silence. And that silence said everything. I stepped closer. You told me it wasn't serious. You told me I'd have time to think. But you're out there playing house while I'm here trying to figure out what's real. He finally spoke, voice low, almost pleading. Claire, I didn't mean to hurt you. No, I cut in, sharper than I expected. You meant to have both. Me and her. Your comfort and your thrill. But you don't get to rewrite our marriage without me. His eyes welled up. I'd never seen him cry that quickly. I don't know who I am anymore, he said. I thought I could handle it. I thought it would just be different, not worse. Just new. I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, and did it feel different when you lied to me? Did it feel new when you bought her jewelry while I was cooking dinner for you at home? We stood there, both wrecked, both pretending to still understand each other. That's when it happened. My phone buzzed on the table. It was a message. From a number I didn't recognize. Claire, I think you deserve to know the truth. He's been lying to both of us. My stomach dropped. I turned the screen toward him, and for the first time, Daniel looked scared. He reached out for the phone, but I pulled it back. Who is she? I demanded. Because if this is Lila, then she's clearly not on your side anymore. He didn't answer. That silence? It broke something in me. Not out of rage, out of clarity. I realized then that this wasn't just a marriage falling apart. It was a man unraveling, and I wasn't going to let him take me with him. But before I could say anything more, another message popped up. He told me you agreed to it. I didn't know. Can we talk? Now it wasn't just about betrayal. It was about the truth. And I wasn't the only one looking for it. I stared at the second message, my fingers frozen above the screen. He told me you agreed to it. I didn't know. Can we talk? So Lila didn't know. Everything Daniel had said about this being transparent, consensual, evolved, it was all a lie. Not just to me, but to her too. I didn't respond right away. I needed a minute. A minute to process the fact that the other woman thought I was okay with all of this. That somewhere between his poetic excuses and half-truths, Daniel had painted me as the co-signer of my own betrayal. He watched me from across the room, breathing like he'd just run a marathon. I could see it in his eyes. He knew what was coming. I wasn't going to sit quietly anymore. I turned the screen toward him again. So now you're lying to her too? He rubbed his face, paced, then dropped onto the couch. Claire, I didn't know how to tell her. I told her what she wanted to hear. No, Daniel, I snapped, my voice finally rising. You told yourself what you wanted to hear. You lied because it was easier than admitting you were hurting both of us. Silence. Again. And that's when it happened. My phone buzzed a third time. But this time, it wasn't from Lila. It was an email notification. Subject: confirmation of property transfer. Escrow finalized. I opened it with a sinking feeling. It was addressed to Daniel. CC'd to a lawyer. I wasn't supposed to see it. The message confirmed the transfer of our beach cabin, the one my parents gave us as a wedding gift. The one still listed under both our names. Except now, apparently, it wasn't. Daniel had sold it, without telling me. My hands went cold. Daniel, I said, barely above a whisper, what the hell is this? His face went blank. Claire, I needed the money. For what? He hesitated. To pay off some stuff. And to cover Lila's move. It felt like the floor dropped out beneath me. You sold the cabin to move her here? He stood up, palms out. It was a mistake. I just thought, if I could set things up right, maybe we could all make this work. Eventually. That was the moment I stopped seeing him as my husband. Because I realized something deeper than betrayal had taken place. This wasn't about sex. Or love. Or some twisted vision of an open relationship. This was manipulation. Deception. And the deliberate dismantling of everything we had built, without my consent, and without a second thought. And now Lila wanted to talk. But I didn't want an apology. I wanted answers. And finally, I was ready to hear all of them, face to face. I met Lila at a quiet cafe 2 days later. I didn't tell Daniel. I needed to hear it from her, every piece of the puzzle he thought he could keep hidden. She was nervous. Younger than I expected, but not naive. When I sat down across from her, she looked me in the eye and said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I wouldn't have touched any of this if I'd known." It hurt to hear, but I believed her. She showed me the messages, screenshots of Daniel saying I was on board, that we were exploring things together. He even claimed I had met her and that I liked her. I almost laughed. The lies weren't just bold, they were cinematic. But then she pulled out something else. A folder. Inside were copies of financial statements, joint accounts Daniel had funneled into personal ones. Transactions linked to a separate LLC I'd never heard of. And in the middle of it all, a prenup I thought we'd never need, with my signature forged. That was the final blow. He wasn't just betraying me emotionally. He was strategically erasing me, piece by piece, dollar by dollar. I thanked Lila. She didn't owe me anything, but she gave me something I hadn't had in months, the full truth. When I got home, Daniel was on the porch, barefoot, scrolling his phone like nothing was burning. "I met with her," I said, stepping into the frame of the doorway. "And guess what? You lied to her, too." His eyes flicked up, but there was no apology in them. Just exhaustion. Maybe even resentment. "You never really loved me," I said. "You loved the idea of me. The version of me that made you look good. The one who stayed, smiled, forgave." He opened his mouth, but I didn't let him speak. "You're not confused, Daniel. You're calculated. You didn't fall into this, you built it. Quietly, carefully, behind my back." I handed him the folder. He didn't even look surprised. Just said, "You weren't supposed to see that." That was it. Not sorry. Not scared. Just caught. I turned to leave, and that's when he said, "You'll regret this." I stopped halfway down the steps and looked back one last time. "No," I said. "But you will." That night, I checked into a hotel with the dogs and a new lawyer's number on my phone. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just breathed, for the first time in what felt like months. But as I lay in bed, trying to drift off, my phone buzzed one last time. "Blocked number. You don't know the whole story. He lied to me too. Meet me. I can prove it." And just like that, it wasn't over. Not yet. The message came just after I thought I'd finally closed the chapter. "You don't know the whole story. He lied to me too. Meet me. I can prove it." At first, I ignored it. I wanted peace, not more chaos. But something in me, call it closure or maybe stubbornness, needed to know everything. So I replied. We met at a bookstore cafe, quiet and neutral. I expected Lila again. It wasn't her. It was someone else. A woman named Rachel. She introduced herself as Daniel's ex from years ago, before me. Turns out, I wasn't the first woman he'd tried to manipulate into a progressive relationship, nor the first he'd financially exploit. She had stories, documents, even emails from his earlier business ventures, failed ones, where he left other women behind in financial messes while he moved on, untouched. It all clicked. Daniel wasn't confused. He wasn't lost. He was patterned. This wasn't a breakdown. This was who he was. With that final truth, everything inside me shifted. I wasn't grieving a marriage anymore. I was grieving a version of myself that once believed I could fix him. So, I took control. The prenup? Challenged in court. Turns out the forgery was so sloppy, it barely took a forensic expert to prove it. The beach house sale? Frozen in escrow once my lawyer stepped in. And the money? Every cent traced and disputed. But more than the legal wins, I reclaimed me. I found my voice again. I moved out permanently, got a new place, not big, not flashy, just mine. I even started journaling again, something I hadn't done since college. Every entry began with the same line, "You didn't break me. You freed me." As for Daniel, he vanished. Maybe out of shame. Maybe into the arms of someone new to fool. I didn't care. I stopped tracking his moves the day I realized he was no longer my responsibility. And Lila? We stayed in touch briefly. She moved away. Got therapy. She, too, had to rebuild. In her own words, I was manipulated, but I'm not staying stuck there. That's the truth for all of us, isn't it? People will lie. They'll disappoint. They'll rewrite history to fit their comfort. But you always have a choice. You don't have to go down with their story. You can write your own. For me, this was never just about infidelity or property or lies. It was about self-respect. About waking up from a dream that had turned into a nightmare and having the courage to walk away. So, if you're watching this and you're in something that doesn't feel right, trust yourself. Your peace matters more than someone else's potential. And remember, love should never cost you your sanity, your self-worth, or your future. Thanks for sticking with me through this journey. Did you enjoy this story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Let me know in the comments. I read everyone.